Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us this evening. It's great to see some familiar faces tonight, and we're excited to welcome you to Lafayette College's Athletics Alumni Forum, the fencing edition. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Andrew Foster, and I am the Associate Athletics Director for Facilities and Operations and the Sport Administrator for our fencing program. I will be your MC and moderator for this evening. And I will assist in facilitating questions and discussion throughout tonight's forum. I'm in my 6th year here at Lafayette, and I've been the sport administrator for the fencing program since I stepped foot on Lafayette's campus. I've really enjoyed, working with all the coaches that we've had and the student athletes of our fencing programs. What that means as sport administrator is, I'm just here to serve and support the fencing team, Coach Rupp, in any way that I can from administrative level. And I help, with program decisions, relative to both of our programs. So tonight, during this forum, you'll hear from many key contributors from our department to our fencing program. And at the end of the presentations, we'll provide an opportunity for you guys, all alumni, to ask questions of the group. We did receive some questions before the alumni forum tonight, and we'll be sure to hit those at the end. A few housekeeping items for optimal viewing. We strongly recommend changing to speaker view function that allows you to view only the person that is speaking. To ensure the best possible experience for everyone, the microphones of all attendees will be muted. During the question and answer portion at the end, please utilize either the chat or raise your hand feature, which can be found by the opening participants at the bottom of the screen. So with that, we're excited to open up this forum and dive right into the presentations. First up, we have the 2020 Nike Administrator of the Year named by Women's Leaders in College Sports, and our Director of Athletics, Sharita Freeman.
Thank you, Andrew, and good evening to everyone. I certainly appreciate you spending your Wednesday evening with us, and I'm excited to share a little bit about what's going on with Lafayette Athletics, and certainly to answer the questions that you may have once we get to the Q&A segment. First, I'd like to acknowledge your amazing support of the program. We would not be able to operate our teams without the support of our alumni. And so in terms of your engagement, in terms of your financial support, in terms of just your attention that you pay to our teams, that is just something that we absolutely need. So I am incredibly grateful for that. I am also excited about this engagement opportunity. We've been having them with each athletic team. So having a kind of a special forum to have some sports specific conversations. And so I'm excited for you to hear more about the fencing program from Coach Rupp. And certainly I'm excited to share more about what's happening within the Lafayette Athletics program as we move through the conversation today. And the first thing that I will acknowledge, and it's kind of always the big topic of conversation, is COVID-19. We've had several challenges throughout the year, and it seems like it's been forever now that we've been dealing with all the twists and turns of COVID. But, we were fortunate to have all of our students, including all of our student athletes, return for the spring semester, which I think we were certainly fortunate for that. There are, other leagues and other institutions that were not so lucky. And to know that we are almost to the finish line of the spring semester is pretty phenomenal. We certainly had our share of challenges and interruptions and, condensed seasons. And I know Coach will share a little bit about that, but, most of this year is in the rearview mirror, and we can, honestly say that we've done a nice job navigating those challenges, and we can look forward to the future and hopefully having our seasons and our academic years be as normal as possible. With all of the medical guidance and protocols and all the different policies that we needed to adhere to this year, we asked our coaches to continue to see the bigger picture, to remain flexible, and most importantly, to keep the team focused on what they could control. And certainly Greg has done a wonderful job with that and has led the team very well. So I'll go back a little bit and I'll talk a little bit about the vision for Lafayette Athletics. And the title of our athletic strategic plan is Creating a Championship Culture. And we launched that plan back in fall of 2018. And I will not go into all of the detail of the plan because you can look it up online and see all of the different objectives and strategies included. But we have 6 strategic objectives, and the first is competitive excellence. The second is academic excellence. The third is to have a positive student athlete experience. The fourth is building community and spirit. The fifth is to have integrity and a commitment to diversity. And the sixth portion of our strategic objectives is to generate the financial support we need to achieve all the different things that we've set out to achieve. And ultimately, creating an environment for student athlete success with a particular attention to wellness and performance has been at the core of the strategic plan. In each of the first 2 years of the plan, we released a publication that's kind of a look back into how we were able to perform in that particular year. So after the 18-19 academic year, as well as after the 19-20 academic year, we released a publication entitled Climbing the Hill, which highlights all of the accomplishments from each of the 2 years. And we will certainly do the same coming out of the end of this very, very interesting academic year. But the goal overall for all of this is to change our approach, set expectations that will adjust the trajectory of our athletics programs in general, and build with energy and excitement around athletics as a whole. So in the 2.5 years since the launch, I can highlight some of the progress that we've been able to make. Prior to COVID, which is kind of the ending point where I can say that we were able to compare where we've been in previous years, we had jumped 6 places in the Petrie League President's Cup, which is pretty phenomenal for us. We saw our best fall season in 25 years, and we saw each of our teams before their seasons were cut short. They all saw tremendous improvement. And then our academic success has continued even as our athletic success has increased. Lafayette, as of November, with the release of the NCAA GSR, which is the graduation success rate, Lafayette leads the nation. We're tied with 8 other institutions for first place at 99%, which is pretty phenomenal, given the rigors of what our students need to manage academically, but also the fact that we are also improving athletically. And certainly this is the progress that I had in mind when the plan was launched. We've had accomplishments in all 6 strategic objectives. We have a coach development program. We established expectations for our coaches and staff. We have enhanced the performance evaluations. We've also enhanced our outreach and collaboration with faculty, which has strengthened our relationships and support for athletics across campus. We've also seen an increase in school spirit, which we've been able to do with a focus on the fan experience and engagement during our athletics events. We started a park zone at our football events. So in the end zone, this is when we were able to have fans and, before the pandemic, where we could engage with alumni and donors during the game and really be able to talk about some of the wonderful things that are happening in athletics. And then we also had whiteout games for most of our sports, which was great for our students to get excited about coming to our athletic events. And this was more so to drive attendance across the board. So it wasn't just, getting our students excited about going to the traditional football and basketball games, but to get our students excited about supporting all of our student athletes. And then the last thing that I will mention is that we were also able to continue to maintain our revenue for our annual fundraising goals at $1.8 million. And so those are the kinds of things that we've been able to do within the first 2.5 years of the plan. But we still have championships as our goal. We have our sights set on those high expectations. And really, we want to continue to focus on what we can do to continue to prove each and every one of our programs. Our current phase is trying to come out of COVID strong and building for the future. So we've been doing a lot of that this semester as we've been trying to operate all of our athletic teams. but we want to focus on building the resources to support our operating budget. So in particular, thinking about sports like fencing, how can we increase their operating budget so that they can improve upon their recruiting opportunities, whether it be travel for the teams in general, equipment, all of those things that we know are important to make sure that our teams are competitive. And we certainly want to maintain or increase the hours of availability for all of those things that are available for all of our student athletes. So again, not thinking about it from a sports specific standpoint, but thinking about what are those things that all of our student athletes need to access that will make them better and give them a better experience. And so that's for availability for the sports psychologists, whether it be nutritionists, and other ways for us to support the holistic wellness and development of our student athletes. And the last thing that I'll just mention is that we are definitely looking forward to next year. And so far, as we've been working through some of the protocols within the institution, that we imagine things will return back to normal. Our coaches will be able to resume recruiting activity as of June 1st, because they've been in a dead period where they've not been able to leave campus, and we've not been able to have recruits come on campus as well. We'll be able to host camps and clinics on our campus this summer, which will be great. All of our preseason arrivals are expected to start as planned. Our enrollment and density on campus is expected to be as it normally would, with our traditional start date for the fall semester. And we will hopefully do that with the backdrop of a new strategic direction, as I'm sure you're all aware that we will also have a new president. So there's a lot of energy and excitement and optimism about what the future will look like. I think a lot of people are just ready for us to be able to do some of the normal things that we were doing prior to the pandemic hitting us all. And I think we've navigated all the challenges very well, but certainly are looking forward to the future. So I know you are really excited to hear from Coach Rupp about this past season, and also what he is looking forward to next year. So I'll turn it back over to Andrew to introduce Greg.
All right, thanks, Sharita. So I'll pass it right on to Coach Rupp. Greg Rupp just completed his second and rather interesting season as the head fencing coach here at Lafayette. But Greg, provide us some updates.
All right, so nice. The biggest update as of today is we had to move some vaccine tables from the fencing area. So they're actually doing the vaccinations right around the fencing area. So it's kind of exciting. A couple of the fencers actually got vaccinated in the last few days. So so things are moving finally very nice, quickly along. The way the season, so I came in the year before COVID started. We just finished, that was my first year here at Lafayette. So I got a good normal year under my belt and got to feel the culture of Lafayette College and the Lafayette fencing team, which is great. The team is an amazing team, very academic, very athletic, and very hungry and very self-motivated. So so I could have asked for a better team to become the coach of. So as of last March is when awesome COVID started coming in. So there was no nationals last year. There was regionals. A couple of our kids finished decently at regionals, but nobody qualified for nationals, which is going to be the next big thing that we're going to be aiming for, talking about championships and things like that. So so the COVID year started where the fall semester was actually all remote. So we didn't get to start in the fall, but we got to start in February. So the spring semester became in person, and we wound up. So the Sharita and the athletics department really did a great job keeping athletics in mind of the campus, and the campus kept athletics in mind, and everybody kept fencing in mind. So I'm very happy that we actually, the entire step, every step of the way, we were notified with what's the possible, what's going to happen next, how we can do this, and it's been fantastic experience, given that it's been a pretty interesting year. So we actually got to get on campus as like February 1st, February 2nd, and with after testing, the fencers got to actually have a couple of weeks of practice at first non-contact. So we had a lot of dummy work. We had a lot of targeted work. I got a lot of good fun things like that for the fencers to use. And then we started doing and as February started rolling through, we started doing actual in contact fencing and everything. We did about 3 or 4 weeks of that before the season started. March 1st. As of March 1st, we were allowed to actually fence other teams. So we got to have a dual meet with Drew. We got to have a dual meet with John Hopkins. We had the women fence Temple and JIT, and they got to actually. We were very happy about that, by the way, guys. It was. Would we have a competition? Would we have a competition season? So we got about 2 or 3 weeks worth of competition in, squeezed as much as possible into those 2 or 3 weeks. And thank you to the athletic trainers here and for making sure everything went. We did a lot of testing, and it was at least 1 test a week. When they're in the competition, we did 1 test of one type and another test on like Thursday and Friday, make sure that we were good over the weekend to fence the other teams. And that way we could all be very sure that everybody was negative going into the weekend of when we were having competitions. So it's been a pretty, so that is thanks to the campus. Thanks to the athletics department that we actually got to actually compete. We actually got to have practices in confidence with masks on. We got to actually have competition against these other teams with masks on. Masks, yes, fencing masks too, but masks underneath the masks. Imagine that it's very restrictive breathing, you think, but you do get used to it, and our fencers got used to it. So it was very good. They competed very well, and certain individuals did better than others, and but everybody got to actually train and actually get ready for competition. And then we finished up. I think the last day NCAA allowed a day of competition was March 15th. And they had an adjusted nationals. There were no regionals this year. Everybody qualified directly to nationals because so many schools had dropped out that there was no regionals. So they had the nationals, and none of us qualified for this year, but we didn't have enough competition. A couple of the other schools started in February to have their competition, so they got to jump ahead of us. And we were just okay with that because the way the fencers responded, just the fact that we had practices and just the fact that we could actually have competition at all was very positively. We got to actually, they were very hungry to do something other than just be remote, just be taking classes. They were very happy to get on the piste at all and actually fence. So it was a very positive experience of just having practices and having competition at all. We'll focus next year on championships, of getting these guys faster than their peers and from other teams, stronger, more excellent, and everything like that. And that's pretty much how the year went. I was very proud of being their coach this year, and I'm very proud of their responses. And so we had 4 kids who stayed remote, so they didn't get to actually compete, but they'll be coming back in September. We have a bunch of recruits coming in, about 7 new recruits coming in. So we're losing 4 seniors, 2 on the women's, 2 on the men's, and we'll be at least getting 7 recruits in as of September. So the numbers look good for next year. And the recruits we're getting are very strong. And even they just started competing, and they're already doing strongly at their high schools and at their high school competitions and the USFA competitions. And that's pretty much the COVID year in a nutshell. But very happy to meet with you guys and tell you guys all about it. And I'll definitely make myself more available to respond to you guys and be able to tell you guys more of what's going on as things go. And if definitely any questions, save some questions. I'll definitely answer any questions you guys have.
All right, Greg. Thank you. I'm sure there'll be plenty of questions at the end. Now we turn it over to our Director of Athletic Development and our Fencing Development Liaison, Josh Azer.
Thank you, Andrew, and thanks to everyone for joining us this evening. I'm going to make my comments very brief, as I would like everyone to hear from our fencing friends of chair, Barry Felsenberg. Barry oversees a group of very dedicated alums who have stepped up to participate to help all of us raise support for the fencing program. And I'm very happy that he's able to join us this evening. Really, what I wanted to talk to the group about, I think many of you know that there are quite a few costs that come with running a fencing program. And we obviously are very grateful, as Sharita said, for your continued support. I'm sure that you have heard multiple times about different ways that you can support the program. You can give your time, your talent, or your treasure, and those dollars go directly to impact our men and our women that are part of the fencing program. If you have questions this evening after the call about how you can support the program, Barry or I would be happy to answer any of those questions, as well as Coach Rupp. Again, we are very happy that we were able to complete a shortened season this year, but we're looking forward to having many of you follow along next year. Again, we do ask, that maybe if you have an interest in joining our efforts, that you reach out to Barry or myself after the call. We can provide you with plenty of details about our Friends of Group, ways that you can get involved, and definitely more opportunities to help with jobs, internships, or any of the other areas that our Friends of Group works on every year. So with that, I would like to turn things over to Barry Felsenberg, as I mentioned, our Friends of Chair for the fencing program. Go ahead, Barry.
Josh, I think the only thing I would add, Barry was class of 79, but as far as the class or the team of 1975 picture that Barry shared with us, he definitely had the best hair on campus. So Barry, take it away.
Very good. Thank you all so very much for attending, and
My team.
thank you for your support.
Hi, Barry.
I really want to thank Coach for taking care of a bunch of kids and keeping them focused and making them nice young men and women, and just giving them a wonderful experience in this COVID crazy year. So accolades to you, Coach. It's been very difficult, and I'm sure, and thank you to all the staff at Lafayette for doing this. I do want to encourage, when things get back to normal, that people get involved with Friends of Lafayette Group. When a fencing meet is in your area, please come and support the team. It's not always just about donating some money. That is easy for us to reach in our wallets and send something. But we really need people to get to know the students and to support them and to be mentors for these kids. They are all in very different programs. They all come from very varied backgrounds. And this whole Lafayette experience is what includes them all to make a cohesive group, whether they're from China or Turkey or from outside of East. Everybody in the fencing group gets together and they become so cohesive, as we saw when we were members of the team also. So we encourage people, get involved with the team, help support and make a wonderful effort for these kids to have enough equipment, to have enough coaching staff so that they can attend meets and do all the things that keep them focused and give them something to look forward to in these crazy times. And just please, if you have some pictures, send them in. I sent out a whole collage of some pictures to people. And thanks, Andrew, for embarrassing me because it's not there anymore. But it's part of what makes the group fun, is that we can reminisce as well as support the student athletes that are so important to Lafayette, and to show how strong the fencing students are in their academics and how well they stand up in the rankings with all the other teams. So please get involved. And as one of my slides that said, you're never too old to fence, and you're also never too old to make a donation to the team to keep them going. So thank you to everyone for coming. Thank you for your support of the team. And we look forward to a normal next year, and we can all be back in touch and get back up to campus. Thank you all so very much.
Great, thanks, Barry. So that wraps up our presentation portion for the forum this evening. But as promised, we'll open it up for some Q&A. But first, we'll look at a few questions that we had roll in before the forum tonight. I'm just gonna kind of read these off right now, and Sharita, I think the first one may be for you or me. I can answer as the administrator as well. But how does the team continue to survive outside the Patriot League? Is fencing still the sole varsity sport in another league? Back in the day, this is Christian Bornman, class of 91. We were still in the MAC and very proudly the only co-ed varsity team at the college.
So I will say that fencing is still the only sport that we sponsor that the Patriot League does not sponsor from a conference level. And that is because I think we may be one of the only few Patriot League schools that actually have it as a sport. And so unless the other Patriot League institutions were to add fencing to their offerings, we would still need to find another conference to compete in. So that's where we stand. And it's a part of who we are. And I think we have tremendous leadership and between, Coach Rupp and Andrew as a sport administrator, we definitely want to make sure that our fencers feel like they are a part of our department. And so although they are competing in a different conference, that doesn't change, how we see them and how we treat them.
Hey, Sharita and Andrew, thank you for addressing my question. Given sort of post-COVID concerns about, just sports in general, spring football, how we're re-engaging athletics with our student athletes, is there any concern for the fencing team that because we're not so involved in the Patriot League, that we could be shunted aside?
Well, I think, Christian, you ask an interesting question, and I get it all the time, especially, not so much in recent months, but certainly as we were coming through the summer into the fall semester, there were a lot of athletic teams that were dropped across the country.
Right, of course.
And, that's a conversation that I think comes up, occasionally here at Lafayette. But, one of the things that I've said is that our sports sponsorship does help from an enrollment standpoint at our institution. It helps us to recruit the best and the brightest. And so for me, I'm confident that, if we can continue to support our teams, which, for us, a lot of what we are able to do is, through philanthropy and through support. And so it helps us in that regard. And also, too, the fact that our coaches continue to recruit great students to the institution, that also helps us. So for right now, I'm not concerned about that. My concern is how do we continue to support our programs to the best level. We are, actively in an athletics campaign, and part of that campaign is how do we increase our endowments for our sport programs so that they continue to be successful. And so that's my charge. That's what I'm here to do. I never want to be in a position where, I'm looking at decreasing opportunities for student athletes. I think we need to continue to maintain opportunities and actually make those opportunities and experiences better.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, we'll continue on to the next question. Coach Rupp, when will the fencing schedule be available for next season?
For next season, well, we're starting to build it right now. The MACFA conference. So we are part of the men's team is part of the MACFA conference, and we just stapled down some potential dates right now. We're still comparing ourselves of who can host what tournaments and what meets. So as soon as the conference for the men is like the spine, the backbone of how the season looks. So once that's stapled down, then I know what other weekends we have available and what we can actually face. But as of right now, we know when the UPenn Open will be the last weekend, and I think it's the last weekend of January, and the MACFA conference there's going to be one date in November and then 2 dates in 2 different weekends in February. So the question is, once the MACFA conference is stapled down, then I can staple out my other dates. So I'll probably get that up in about 2 months. The MACFA conference, we're having a meeting in about a month. And then after that, we should be able to know which states are stapled for that. And then we'll probably get the schedule up after that. For the women, I'm going to try to create a women's conference. So that we'll try to do I was trying to do this pre-COVID, but we'll see if it can be done for this next year, where we sort of do a practice year with FDU and Wagner and LIU Post, and see if we can create a women's conference with that Division I women's conference, which will be a lot stronger than the men's MACFA conference for the men. So that's all in the works. So that will be a little bit looser, but the spine of this schedule should be up in about 2 months.
And then going off of that, what was the team's record this past year, Coach Rupp?
Oh, COVID wise, I think the men fenced, I think 2 or 3 teams. As a team, they didn't win anything, guys. As a team, we were like 0-3 for the men, and I think we were 0-4 for the women. We were out we had 4 kids who stayed remote. So we gave up a lot of like a few slots on that. So we came close. The women came close to beating 2 of the teams, but Temple blew us out of the water, which they should have, because they had a full team and very strong. But little by little with recruiting, we're going to see how next year we can turn that narrative.
Great. The next question, what are the team's provisions for protecting the team and watchers from COVID? And I think I can answer that, as the facilities and operations person. I think we took a lot of time and put a lot of time in to our protocols, preparing for, a safe and successful season. We have things, mitigation strategies as far as, the normal, masking at all times, staying socially distant, with all of our venues. And it really kind of our sport specific mitigation practices really come off of what the college's operational level is. So for instance, right now we are in operational level 2. Which means we do have an increase of COVID on campus right now, to where we are not allowing any spectators at any of our events currently. So, kind of the ebb and flow of this and the fluidity of COVID-19, we've kind of gone back and forth as far as, letting, fans and spectators on campus and coming to our events. As far as our student athletes and staff, I think Greg already kind of touched on it, but, we tested our athletes, once up to 3 times per week. So that was a huge undertaking for the college and our sports medicine staff, who kind of spearheaded that initiative to ensure that, we were having teams on campus that we knew were negative tested, and then 2, that we weren't traveling to places, if we had a positive test. So I think that answers that question as far as mitigation and strategies there. Another question that came up, are there any provisions for watching meets online? The thing I would add to that, or I would say to that, is that, with this COVID-19 landscape and us not really having fans at our games to where we can't have max capacity, we've seen, an urgency, if you will, to, stream and put our games, out on the internet to try to get them so people can watch from, any area of the globe. And I know that our athletic communications team, and Sharita and I have talked about this at length, and we're thinking through strategies to where we can accomplish that, when we get to it. So, that is a topic that we're talking about. We wish we could, put things online and stream all of our games. But, with staffing and equipment, we we can only do so much at this point. But like I said, we're putting our minds together to figure out a way we can stream as many games as possible. Next question, what is the future of Lafayette fencing, varsity level or club level? Male, female combined, all three weapons, and anticipated competition. I guess that would be for you, Sharita.
Definitely, and I think it goes along the same lines as the answer to the initial question about just sports sponsorship in general. You know, I think for us, we appreciate that we've been able to have good numbers on our men's and women's side. So right now it operates as a mixed sport, but you know, potentially if we can consistently have participation from our women, we could possibly separate them out and actually have them operate as two separate programs, which is definitely a possibility. But it will continue to operate as a varsity sport as far as I know.
All right. Next question. I think it's the last question we have from the pre-form questions. As this comes from Michael Weinstein, class of '86. As far as I know, fencing has never really had significant support regarding recruitment or finances. What is the outlook for the future? Sharita, I know we've kind of touched on it, but if you want to take that one.
Yeah, I think you know, there's a theme to the questions, right? In terms of, you know, how can we, you know, bolster support for the program? And I think, you know, when we talk about the athletics campaign, when we talk about what the future looks like in terms of where do we want support to go, I think there are a few things that we are already thinking about is how do we increase the operating budget? How do we increase opportunities for recruiting, for travel, for equipment, and then also for support from a staffing standpoint. So to be able to, you know, potentially have an assistant coach, to be able to have more support from a compensation standpoint for the coaches we do have. This isn't just a fencing question, right? It is a question that we face across the department. And I think for me, you know, the goal has been, how do we support our student athletes better? How do we support our staff better? So those are all, you know, good questions. And I think it will come from institutional support, yes, but I think some of it will also come our ability to get our supporters to support athletics as well.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going through the chat here, making sure I didn't miss any. Kenneth, thanks for the notification. We have Coach Pierre, coach of the 70s and 80s, has joined the call. So Coach Pierre, it's good to see you. We touched on operating budget. Is there a plan to provide additional coaching staff to help assist Coach Rupp? You know, I think, you know, Sharita kind of touched on that as well. You know, we're working on increasing our operating budgets, increasing our support for our student athletes. You know, and we'll continue to do that. I know Coach Rupp talked about, you know, the urgency to hire a female, particularly to help.
Yeah, that was before the call, though. I mentioned that, so I might as well mention to you guys now. Is there is money in the budget for a assistant coach? That's on me to find that assistant coach. So like the COVID year, sort of, we hired. They're like, okay, don't hire anybody for this year, but next year, yeah, we need more. So we definitely need an assistant coach. I'm definitely searching for an assistant coach. I'm particularly looking for a foil FAA coach. So if anybody's at any clubs and has any suggestions, you can definitely throw me an email. But I would definitely like to put extra weight towards a female coach. So because I think we need that balance. Although that wouldn't anybody of quality, I will be looking for an assistant coach. So there is money for an assistant coach, guys. Definitely going to be hiring assistant coach. As long as everything is thumbs up with this coming year and the budget and everything that's planning. So that I'm on that search. So the trick is also, but we're at Lafayette, so it's going to be somebody in New Jersey who can actually make their way over here. And that's the biggest challenge. Is I know lots of people in New York, and it's just too far for them to travel. So, but that's on me as coach. I will find them. These guys are not going to tell me you got to hire this person or not. So that is a coach Rupp thing, and that's my responsibility to find the most excellent assistant coach for this team I can possibly find.
Thanks, Coach Rupp. And then the last question here, you were kind of touching on it there, but how can alumni help you, help us with the fencing program? You know, whether it be, you know, operating budget, team travel, you know, what comes to my mind is obviously, you know, our student athletes who make it to regionals, who make it to nationals, you know, like you talked about, we're aspiring to make it that far. You know, I can see that as a possible, you know, avenue, and that alumni can help support us.
Can I talk on this?
Go ahead.
Thank you, guys. Okay, so one of the things this team does, and it's an excellent thing, is before the first day of school in January, we try to do a winter camp. That eats a lot of the budget, and the budget has been covering that, but there's a lot of good opportunities there to sort of supplement. What I've done is I've taken the fencers and I bring them 2 weeks before the first day of school, and we start just training 2 practices a day type of thing, Monday through Friday. That takes a lot of it because we have to actually pay for the students' meals and things during that time. And I want to start taking them 3 weeks before the first day of school. So that's the easiest thing I could say that we could definitely use some support in, so that I could actually use that operational budget towards something else. But that winter camp, that pre-season, that first day of school, feeding the students every day, affording them and everything with that always helps. Anything donations towards that always helps a lot. The kids have such an amazing experience for those weeks before the first day of school, because they get really to bond, they get to really defense, and it's an experience, it's an experiential thing. So anything, I would say anything to do with travel, anything to do with that winter camp is really brilliant, and definitely gives the fencers that great experience that you guys remember of those overnights, those travel dates, everything like that. The more money I get in for travel, the further away we can actually potentially go to, like Ohio State, to train to have competitions and things like that. I don't know how many overnights we're going to really have for next year. Everybody's a little sensitive about COVID, but that is something potentially I really just would love to give this team, that experience of going to these Division I schools, Midwest or down in the South, and more of those experiences that you guys remember for when you guys were on the team.
Great. Thanks for sharing that, Coach Rupp. I think that's all the questions that I've seen in the chat and pre the forum. Does anybody have anything else? Feel free to throw it in the chat, or feel free to speak.
Hi, Noah Weiner, class of 2012. So 2 questions. One, so Coach Rupp, you kind of mentioned what the current budget is. It's like all those things that you mentioned, like sending to away meets, what would the budget be like? And so like, what's the kind of shortfall that kind of alumni can step up and help out?
Okay, so I would say like a single overnight with everybody, the hotels and with the meals and everything, comes out to be about about maybe $600 to $800 for experience. So that for every $600 or $800, we get to have another experience like that. If you know what I mean, of traveling and also affording the buses that we need to go out to that. So far we have so much support from the athletics department of traveling to these local schools, and even doing overnights with the bus. But all that, anything like that, $600 to $800, and it doesn't have to come from one person, it can come from a whole group effort. But those things help. Those things definitely add to the experience.
So like every away meets like roughly $1,000 to $1,500.
I would say it comes up to that, depending on how far. If we were going to go down to North Carolina for Duke or for North Carolina, that's pretty much how much, at least how much it would cost to go down there, spend overnight, at least one overnight, and then, you know, bus down, bus up, that type of thing. Yes.
And I guess this is a question for kind of the directors. I know similar programs, I know Stanford's a really good example, set up an endowment for their fencing program. I know it got caught in some like bigger issues with Title IX, and not, I guess it wasn't Title IX, but kind of budget cuts. To set up an endowment for a program like the Lafayette fencing, what's kind of the ballpark range? Is it like a couple $100,000? Is it $1 million? Just like, because that's something we could probably work with the alumni to secure.
So I'll definitely defer to Josh from a development standpoint in terms of how to set up an endowment. But in terms of the cost, if you can think about it, the endowment spent off 5%. So if we're looking to endow the entire budget, or if we're looking to endow the head coaching position, any of those kinds of resources are helpful. It just depends on, you know, how much can we actually acquire to be able to support the program. But yes, to be able to have an endowment where we know that it's going to spend off a certain amount each year, that's less money that we'll have to raise, and that's money that we can count on each and every year. That just gives coach the security to be able to say, you know, we're not raising money just to go to Duke for one game this season. We can plan to go to these competitions each year because we know we have the resources in the bank to do so. So part of the athletics campaign in terms of those efforts, and we'll be launching that next year. So we're just starting to talk about it in terms of where the resources are going to go. But the sport specific needs, as we think about them, in my opinion, we need to be thinking about it from an endowment standpoint so that we can have that support in perpetuity.
So like roughly, so like, let's say there's 100,000 endowment, that could roughly send the team to 3 away competitions every year.
Potentially, yeah.
Perfect. That's really good, helpful. And another thing to note, so I know next season will be the 10-year anniversary of the teammate Everett Glenn passing away. And I think it would be a really good opportunity to do something to honor his family at a greater level. I know I talk to Joanne every May 5th, but I think it's something as a team we could do. I know they would really appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thank
we still honor him, you know, with our fencing, outstanding fencers each year. And we provide those names to the family every year too. You know, we have that in our trophy case in Kirby Sports Center. So yeah, definitely appreciate you bringing that up, and something that we can definitely get on board and support.
And I guess according to Tom, I'm over my question limit, so that's it.
Got to listen to Coach Gautner.
They're good questions, though. I'll just say, you know, Noah, to the endowment point, it goes back to getting a lot more people involved. Many hands make light work. The fencing program typically every year averages around $13,000 to $15,000 annually in fundraised dollars. If we're talking about making a jump to an endowment of 100,000 plus, we're going to need a lot of folks, and we're going to need a lot of individuals to step up.
Do you know if there's any program within Lafayette that kind of does matching, that, let's say, if the alumni, like if there's any, does Lafayette have any program that say like the alumni come in with $50,000 at the athletic program, or some other general budget matches it?
Normally, when we're doing our matching, we rely on a donor to come up with the funds. Anything that you see at institutions, typically when you're looking at a matching gift that's matching dollar for dollar, it typically comes from somebody anonymously who will say, I'll pledge $50,000 for you to use in order to do this match. Most of the time, depending on, you know, where you're looking, it's not coming from an institutional budget. It's coming from a donor that has stepped up and worked with us on the back end in order to provide those dollars.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Mayor, class of 70.
Hey,
How are you?
I'd like to take this opportunity, but since we have team members that span the decades, for an alumni varsity meet, as we all get vaccinated, please God, Coach, perhaps either with homecoming or Lehigh is away or home this year. A.D. Freeman, the game is home or away.
The game is away, is at Lehigh this year.
Okay, so we can't do it then, but either for homecoming then or spring. I also want to thank you, Noah. I wanted to recognize Coach Michael because he too took a team that was floundering through many coach turnovers, just as Coach Rupp came to a team that was in turmoil and in only a year turned things around. I'd known Coach Rupp from my collegiate reffing, and I was very happy. Since Coach Rupp, you haven't mentioned it, I want to tell everyone our incoming foil, Benito Hergert, won what was termed the Jersey High School Championships this weekend and earned his B classification. So he's going to be, if we still have a certain Chinese senior coming back, I guess he'll be a very strong B strip in foil. I've also this weekend while reffing identified an incoming for next year, a foilista who looks interesting. And also, A.D. Freeman, I want to thank you for, we haven't spoken since you've done it, but a very exciting and energizing plan. Of course, fencing having the highest cum out of all the teams, we certainly will be supporting your academic excellence. And yeah, I'm too long, but it comes to a point, and that is, we only have a few minutes to discuss. We have to think about the fencers in general are about academic excellence. So the best fencers, frankly, are headed for the Ivies, and that's our challenge. So how can we get both an academically excellent student who also has fencing chops? And I'm not sure how to answer that. I know that, you know, we're a safe school for many of them, but I know the kids with whom I train, all of them, they're all headed to the Ivies. You know, I wish I had someone who I could bring to Lafayette. End of question.
Talk about your recruiting and your plans to steal from the Ivies.
Oh, I definitely have not been recruiting before the June 1st quiet period. Just like I didn't ref Benito this weekend. I didn't do that either.
I think that question was directed towards Coach Rupp, right? Maybe you can share a little bit about your recruiting tactics and how you think you might be able to recruit some of the best and the brightest.
Yeah, the trick is to just open up the net as wide as possible, get as many people to realize how awesome Lafayette is academically, but also make our name as a fencing school. Guys, you guys all remember St. John's University. I come from St. John's from 91 to 95 before it ever became what it is right now. It was during my years that we built that while I was there, where we went from 91 to 95. 95, we got second at the Nationals. So I am really into building programs and getting the name of the school out there. I will be everywhere recruiting. So COVID kind of put us off for a year, but I still was able, and thank you, Rick, for all your help and your suggestions. I was still able to pull a lot of good foilists for the men's team, and I was able to score at least one good foilist for the women's team. So the men's foil team next year is going to be sick. It's going to be actually quite amazing. So I would put them against a lot of different schools. So I'm looking forward to all that. But as this coming year comes, sorry, I'm hearing feedback. As this next year happens, I'm gonna be recruiting much wider, much all over the place at clubs and internationally. The one thing that Ivy Leagues don't necessarily get is all the international kids. So I'm definitely going to be recruiting internationally very strongly. And we only have so many slots for next year, after next year. So I'm going to be very, very selective with who we get in for both men and women. So we're going to be getting stronger every year, whether, as long as I'm recruiting and I'm going around, I will find the kids that the Ivy Leagues missed. And I will do my best with that. I'm already getting some kudos from other coaches because they thought they had some kids in their school and all of a sudden they went to our school instead. So I'm very happy to be, stealing from their thunder finally. And Lafayette's going to wind up getting stronger. Yes, international trips, we'll see. At least maybe to Canada for one of those tournaments if we can get the money for that kind of traveling. Yeah, one thing, guys, that a NAC, a USFA NAC or an FIE tournament helps the scoring for our students. If they get to go to one and they get points at those tournaments, they look more valuable coming into regions. They get placed better at regionals, they get placed better at nationals. So that one tournament, one or the other, a NAC or an FIE tournament, definitely is on the table. I was planning on doing that starting at this year. I'll be starting it next year. So I definitely will shop for NACs. I don't know. I can't do July. That's all. The hard part is it has to be during the season from somewhere between October 1st and March, 1st type of thing.
All right. Thank you very much, Coach Rupp and Sharita, for your Q&A session. A few items before we close here. The fall 2020 class marks the 50th anniversary of coeducation at Lafayette College. We'll be celebrating its 50 years of coeducation with programming all year long. And we'll be honoring the contributions of women to Lafayette's past, present, and future. With that, we appreciate everybody's attendance and participation tonight. Thank you to our presenters and the staff kind of behind the scenes for making this Zoom call happen. And to all of you alumni for your gracious support and your willingness to be here with us tonight. So, and as always, go Leopards. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.